What is going on, everybody? It is the Heart Pirates TCG. I am here with a man who not only has massive biceps, but he also has a serial Luffy. He has this. This is Hasm. He's been on our channel multiple times for topping with Law. He has a serial Luffy. I've thought about getting a serial Luffy, so we're kind of in the same bracket here of play styles. It's all about the thought that counts, really. But so what I want to talk about is we want to make a complete masterclass on how to play Law. He is one of the most difficult decks to master. So we have a lot of different kind of talking points that we want to go after. But to start off, Hasm, let's talk about starting hands and mulligans. Like, what are you looking for in an ideal starting hand most of the time, in generalities?
We have like 2-drop Sanji now, that allows you to kind of just eat through your life, apply more pressure, and just like keep card flows going. So against like decks like Queen, Rebecca, Nami, even Katakuri, if they're like on the starving strategy, Sanji's like a good card to have in hand because it'll effectively like draw you like 3 cards, depending how you use it. Like sometimes I'll just like I might not draw with him right away, and I'll wait till the turn I can like attack with him, draw a card with him, and then maybe shambles, put him back into play like standing up. That way he's protected and he can draw me another card. So that's one of the cards that for this format I'm kind of like searching to have against, obviously depending on the deck.
So against the
Other
decks that starve, you're looking for Sanji, and then anything else with Sanji?
Yes. So Sanji's definitely, obviously Sanji could be kind of like if the hand is like kind of like Nami and some like green cards, you can kind of like effectively think, okay, this Nami has a potential chance of also hitting a Sanji or providing some in that matchup, or providing some type of like card advantage. In general, I'm probably looking for red searchers, and either Bonnie or Blocker Law. So some type of combination of these cards uh, definitely work the best together. And depending on the matchup, yeah, I could maybe settle for, instead of having a searcher, I could settle for it being Sanji, because he's effectively like doing the same effect in these matchups, stuff like that.
That's fair. So you're looking for a red searcher and either Bonnie or Law.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And depending on, obviously, and depending on the matchup, it could be a Sanji instead of the Searcher, because he does the same effect.
Gotcha. Is there any, so like, let's say you're going, do you normally want to go first or second into Law? I guess the only time you go second is against what, Whitebeard?
I pretty much go second all the time in against all the decks except for Rebecca.
Gotcha. And you want to go first to just kind of put the aggression on. Okay.
So yeah, so against Rebecca, obviously hero power on 1 is obviously most efficient for them, so I just try to throw them off curve a little bit. Same thing with Kiros. He comes down on 3 Dawn. So me putting them on the draw, puts like one of their Dawns to like, being kind of useless on turn 1, just not really doing much. And then puts them off curve for their Kiros and for their Luffy as well.
Okay. So let's talk about, so we talked about the starting hand. We're kind of gonna go kind of chronologically here. So early game plays, right? Obviously you start out with like your searcher or something along those lines. Do you ever like just like play a Zoro and pass, or like play, or like maybe swing with your characters early? Do you ever do that, or do you only attack when it's time to shambles and like pick them back up to safety?
I definitely try to, as much as possible, not expose any of my characters till maybe like, the 3rd turn. That way, I can like make sure that my opponent isn't like, attacking into my board, and instead he's like either pressuring my life total, aka drawing cards, so I can fuel the board better. Um, and Or I can apply some amount of pressure, but in a very slow way. So like if my hand's like kind of slow, I have some 5 drops. I'll play a Zoro on my turn 2, and I'll just like pass the turn and not attack with it. And then like let's say on turn 3 I still can't shambles. My hand is like 5 drop laws or a restand law. I'll attack with my Zoro for 5, and then I'll just hard cast play law for 5 mana, either one, and I'll just either restand the Zoro standing up, or same thing with the blocker law. I'll just pick up my Zoro and just put it in place. Then that way, my opponents can't necessarily pressure into my board because I still need to build it, and that's what you want to prioritize is building your board. That way you can just for 2 mana every turn, just like shambles, draw cards, put in more like heavier threats. And you can also at the same time you get to pick up cards from your life, which allows you to kind of maneuver a game to how you're playing.
Okay. Is there ever a time, or kind of walk me through, I'm sure you've done this plenty of times, but the turns where you want to hard drop, like hard play a 5-drop and then also shambles, what do you kind of, like, what's the scenario where you would do something like that?
On a turn where I just hard cast the 5-drop?
Yeah, so like you want to hard cast a 5-drop, but also you want to shambles. Like let's say, like, is there ever a board state where like you would do something like that, and it like what would drive you to do that?
So
Because I've seen plenty of people do that, but I always wondered why they did that.
I mean I usually only really do that if like I have a if I have a Hawkins in my hand, and like let's say I also have like a blocker law. It's always typically better to put the blocker law into play because getting like a lot more things, like you're picking up a searcher, putting a blocker into play, you're putting a card that draws you another card, so you're just getting a lot more value instantly out of the blocker law. And Hawkins kind of will just like die in your hand. So in these scenarios, I'll just play the Hawkins for 5 mana because that card is dead in your hand. But when it's in play, it may not do anything at that like the instant you put it into play, but it'll win. It can definitely help you win the game as the game progresses. And then I'll put my Hawkins into play, and then I'll shambles if I have the luxury.
Do you most of the time find yourself attacking the second time with the Hawkins to like defend a 6k because it's easier to defend than a 5k, or would you rather just restand it so they like keep trying to attack your life and you just take the life?
Say that again. Sorry, you're saying do I find myself?
So like when Hawkins restands himself, right?
Right.
Do you ever attack again, or do you try to just like keep him basically stood up the whole time and like I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's easier to defend a 6k rather than your leader at 5k. But do you prefer them to just try to keep attacking your life or the Hawkins?
I mean, honestly, once the Hawkins in play and you've already attacked with it once and got to restand it, you've already gotten enough, like plenty of value. I'll attack back into it and use it as a 6k leader, but you gotta also like understand that this deck also plays a lot of blockers, so it's a lot easier to protect the Hawkins. And so if you do decide to protect it, that also gives you something to attack back into. So if they go attack it for like, whatever for 8, and you choose to like whether guard point it or block with a blocker or 2k, 1k, they're gonna have to attack with it with another creature. So like now you have more things to like attack into and potentially like board wipe them. As long as obviously it doesn't necessarily like hinder you and you're discarding your whole hand to do it. But yeah, I would put him tapped. If my opponent plays the pass game, where he's just like I put Hawkins into play and he doesn't attack with his guys and passes, then I'm definitely going to just pass the turn back to not attack.
Gotcha. So you would never just attack Hawkins like straight at life, right? You just hold him.
Oh no, yeah, I know he's not. Yeah, he's not going
Yeah.
straight at life. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. I see a lot of people like when I watch people's videos and like they'll just like attack with Hawkins one time and they'll just like restand him and not do anything with him the next turn or like with the other attack. And I'm like, you're kind of like not using Hawkins to the best of his ability because like he's just a menace as soon as he gets on the board. If he stays on the board, he's like so hard to deal with. You know, I mean, 2 attacks per turn. Why would you not? You know, I mean, obviously on the turns where you don't have a lot of cards, like you restand him, but you know, if you can protect him, I feel like it's way better to just kind of like keep swinging with the Hawkins at characters.
Yeah, and with this deck, it's pretty easy to protect him. You know, you have a lot of blockers. You got plenty of you know, you draw a lot of cards with your searchers to be able to just like keep protecting him and outvalue your opponent. You'll just be able to clear their boards back.
Yeah. So same concept, but when do you start using your law offensively, like your blocker law? A lot of people don't really use him offensively, and that's kind of like that separates it good from the great law players is like, you know, having that extra body to start putting in pressure. When do you like what kind of game state do you start using him offensively?
I'm pretty much always using offensive, unless it's like final turns and I need to math out like blockers and cards in hand to be able to like maybe squeeze out an extra turn to survive and just kill him on the swing back. But typically, I am always using him offensive, whether it's attacking at their creatures or attacking at their life. Because just same thing like Hawkins, you know, like but obviously this is you have a lot more of these, but he just makes your leader act as a 6K leader. Um, Sometimes, obviously, I won't attack with him. Like, you know, maybe sometimes in the mirror, if you like, opponent has an Otama or something that I know about, I don't want to run him out there. Maybe I'll just like attack with him and then like restand and like leave him standing back up because I don't want to that my opponent just putting Otama ink him and putting me in a difficult position to protect him. But typically, law's always a
Gotcha. You're breaking up just a little bit, by the way, but so
let me know if it's not like going through.
gotcha. I might have to ask you to repeat yourself in the future if it keeps breaking up, but it's not too bad right now. Is there any character that you just won't protect? Like, do you think like protecting Zoro is worth it most of the time, or do you just kind of let Zoro become a blocker?
90% of the time, Zoro's ending up in the. So if they attack into my Zoro, it's like it's going to the trash.
Okay, so Zoro's another blocker as soon as he does his job.
Exactly. He comes in, he attacks, he gets a card, kills the thing, whatever. Obviously I'm saying 90% because there's obviously scenarios where I know like, you know, I need to protect this Zoro because if they kill this Zoro and they have a pistol or something,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna lose everything. So I need to at least protect.
In this segment of the video, we're speaking mainly in generalities. So like we'll get to specific matchups later, but like yeah. So Zoro is someone you won't protect. What about Luffy? Would you protect Luffy, or is he on a different kind of like important scale?
Luffy is definitely I would probably protect more because he obviously a lot of people like you can see, you know, through a lot of games people have been playing. A lot of people just cast Luffy, put Luffy into play and just say go, and then they threaten a big attack with Restain Law that's unblockable, and you know that'll just like instant kill anybody. So Luffy's worth a lot more to protect. Uh, but also Luffy usually doesn't come down till like the very end of the game. That's like one of the cards that you're always sandbagging in your hand. Versus Zoro, like you know, my first shambles will probably put Zoro, you know, with like a blocker.
Okay, you broke up pretty bad right there. Can you say that again?
I was saying so Luffy usually I usually sandbag in my hand. Versus Zoro, Zoro's usually like comes in early on, so off the blocker law. So I probably won't. I usually don't protect him, but with Luffy, because you're bringing him in at the end of the game, with a double swing unblockable, it's usually like guarantees a kill. So I usually protect my Luffy if I happen to tap him.
Gotcha.
Whatever. Hmm.
Is there ever a point where you would put, like, you would just kind of play Luffy on tempo, like on curve? Like, would you ever do that, or is that like something you just like never really consider?
There are obviously there's some games where like my opponents just like have the freaking nuts removal spells, and they're just like going like Vista into Marco into like Fire Fist your board, and I just have to like hard cast like creature. Um, so even yeah, if you just playing Luffy is fine, and just like making sure you keep the pressure, whether it's against them or against Whitebeard. If you want to keep the pressure applied, yeah, I mean there's if I can sandbag him for like the surprise attack, because a lot of people are just like always like, oh, does he have a Luffy? Am I gonna play around the Luffy? No, I'm not gonna play around the Luffy. I'm just like if he has the Luffy, I have it. Oh well, guess what? I've been holding it since turn one, in my hand. So
Especially if they don't see you search it, it's like a nightmare.
yeah, exactly. Also that. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to kind of like we talked about like the early game plays, right? But is there a time? So like, let's say you don't draw one of your key pieces. Well, let's say you draw one of your red searchers, but you don't have a green, like you don't have a Law and you don't have a Bonnie. Do you?
Mm-hmm.
When do you start like kind of holding your searchers so you don't start bottom decking the Nami? Like, can you talk to me about like kind of like the science behind like your searching in the early to like slightly mid game?
So you want to always keep track of how you're manipulating your deck, what's going to the bottom. So if I go Curly to Dan and I know that there's um two laws going to the bottom of the deck, I know there's only two left. If I if I go if my because this happens a lot where your hand is maybe full of like red searchers. If you don't draw any of the green cards, more than likely the rest of your hand is like the Dons, Amis, and the shitter blocker.
Yeah.
So you can kind of keep count based off of like what you're hitting. This takes a lot more practice though. In terms of like okay, like this the Don at the top five. I picked up a card from it, so before going to the bottom, play a Nami afterwards. Or if I hit a Nami with the Don, I play the Nami. The Nami whiffed, so there's five to the bottom. So there's 9 cards going to the bottom. Typically, when you're arranging your cards, you're either putting the blocker law on the very top of the stack of searching, or you're putting uh, Bonnie's also usually a good one because the Bonnie virtually can help you if you happen to hit it. It can help you dig 5 more.
Yeah, you can Bonnie and search Bonnie to Bonnie again.
Yeah, you can exactly. So you can Bonnie into like straight up the law. So it's definitely very important as you get used to the deck is to start kind of keeping track of how you're arranging everything because this is gonna happen a lot, and you're gonna get to a point where uh you've drawn about 15 cards and there were 5 cards in your life. There's probably like whatever however many are in your trash, and you've gone through like let's say like 4 searchers, which is very easy to do. So you've gone through at least
20 cards.
20 cards exactly. So you're already at like 40 something cards. So that means your next searcher might hit. You should know what it's gonna hit. So you should know that okay, well I put the law on top here, or no, okay, there's 10 more cards. The law is 10 more cards. So then maybe I should Nami first. The Nami's gonna hit the first 5 cards, and then and then I can hit the law from the bottom 5 cards for that.
So to clarify what you just said right there, right? Let's say you don't have the green cards that you're kind of looking for, right? Let's say you don't have Bonnie or Law, and let's say you are about 15 cards deep into your deck, and you already sent 1 or 2 down into the bottom of the deck with your other searchers, with your red searchers. Would you use Bonnie to search the next 5 right then and there, or would you wait a little bit later?
Are you saying like mid game or towards like so if I don't know the top X cards and I still can't like if I can't hit law this turn, then I can still keep searching. I mean, there's other targets that you can keep hitting. You can hit Zoros, you can hit stand-up laws, and even if I don't hit it, I'm gonna still shambles Bonnie. And even if I don't have anything big to play, I'm just gonna put in I'll just put in a Nami, or I'll put in a blocker chopper, whatever Nico, whatever it is. But Bonnie just has to go back into my hand, just till the point of where I know either you hit something, you don't. If you don't, you want to make sure you hit and you know it's coming.
Gotcha. Okay. So is there ever a point where let's say you took your first 2 life, right? Let's say you took your first 2 life, you're playing against either a Zoro or a Whitebeard.
I always
Say again, you broke up a little bit.
I always do. I always take my
You always take your first 2 life. Exactly. So I'm saying, so let's say you take your first 2 life and you're about 15 cards deep with Nami, and you just have, or like with Nami into Dons and things like that, and you just haven't found your laws. Is there a point where you just say, like, screw it, I'm gonna try to play without law because I can't like just sandbag all my all my searchers trying to find this combo piece? Or is it like you always have to keep in mind something to try to find blocker law? Like, is there ever a point where you just say, I'm gonna just try to win another way without blocker law?
Yeah, definitely. I always try to win with what I have already, because you got to consider, if you're not obviously, if you're not drawing any of your green stuff to shambles, you still have a lot of like searchers that you're drawing still a lot of cards. Your Dedans are finding Otamas, Makinos, Namis, Choppers. Your Namis are finding, whether it's Nikos, Zoros, your Vents, whatever it is, or the Sanjis. So you're still providing yourself, your deck, with a lot of value. Now, with that value, you could still use it to hedge up against your opponent. Your opponents, even if your opponents do play, and at the same time, I might take more life more aggressively, uh, to help myself find a green source to shambles into. And if not, you're, like I said, your Dedan is finding you Otamas. The Otamas do so much work. So much work. I've won games. I've won a countless amount of games with my Choppers, Dedans, and Namis and Otamas. Not ever seeing a green card. Countless amount of.
How do you win those games? Do you just start like kind of value? Sorry, my computer like blacked out for a second. Do you just try to like outvalue them with Otama, or are you just going wide? How are you winning those games without like the green cards? Because this is something I want to know too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, these games are obviously the most difficult, and they take the most amount of just like more of like it's not as much about law anymore. It's just more of like player experience. Because I'll just like if I have a Capone, I can win the game off of just the Capone. The Capone will. I'll just keep rechaining my. My opponent attacks with something. I put the Otama into play. The Otama negs on his guy. Now my Dedans can attack into it. Now my Furadon, maybe my Nami can attack into it. My leader can attack into it. It's very easy to clear their stuff, and then I'll shambles for 2 mana and put the Beige into play. Put the green blocker, and then next turn I'll do the same thing. My opponent plays something. I'll shambles the. I'm not gonna throw away cards because every card now is extremely valuable. I'll shambles the Otama into play for 2 mana, pick up my Beige, and whatever I need to clear, I'll clear, and I'll just keep doing that, keeping that type of pressure. And it's much more difficult. However, this can still, like, I'll be attacking with my Chopper, because guess what? I Otama'd your guy. I put whatever a Don or 2 on my Chopper. I attacked into your guy. My Chopper just ate ate a card out of your hand. You attack back into it. He acted blocker. He got me an extra turn to be able to maybe find a green card. But yeah, I mean, and same thing. Makino helps a lot into you being able to attack. If you're playing 2-drop Brooks, you play a Brook, put the Dons on the Curly Dan. He hit 5. The deck is still, even without it, is still pretty good. You just have it's a lot of it's a lot more work for sure. Um, but it's definitely doable.
Okay. So when you're searching generally, what do you want to search for? So like get like kind of walk me through like what you're searching for. Is it just based on need, or is it like a specific game plan you usually follow based on like matchups or something like that, or maybe just in general? Like what are you searching for the with these three searchers?
So with the curly, Dedan, obviously, I'm looking for Otama or Nami. Those are Otama is the best, 2K counter in the deck, and I'm always trying to find her specifically against Whitebeard. Um, Even against like mirror match, she's good. If you're playing Nico Robin, you can Nico something back. Uh, you know, uh, it's against like yellow. You could kill with Otama and Nico. You can just like kill Peros. Um, Otama is just a great, very flexible card in general, so she's always my go-to with Dedan. Unless I see Nami, because then Nami will provide me like an extra search. So I got a card, now I might be able to get an extra card. So that kind of like to me um is like another target depending on what I need. Because if I have like let's say a blocker law in hand and I go curly, then I'll just like go Nami so I can maybe find a Zoro. So then I can shamble, put the law into play, put the Zoro, and I've assembled Exodia in it. but
So
but yeah,
if you search with the Dawn against Whitebeard and you see a Nami and you see a Otama, what do you mainly what would you get?
I would if it's against Whitebeard,
Yeah,
I would prioritize the Otama. Uh,
gotcha.
Too good
Yeah.
against Whitebeard.
And then you just use it. I mean, well, you use it against everything, right? But like you use it against Ace. Is there? Would you ever use it on like their Thatch? Like, would you ever Otama a Thatch, or is it just like the Ace, the Rush Luffy, and like the 4/6 Vanilla?
Yeah, I would probably against the Thatch. The only thing I would do is if I have a pistol and I just like Otama pistol it. But
Gotcha.
but besides that, it's going on like the 4/6s and 4/4s.
And any like whatever to put cards like within reach, right? So like you basically don't want to use the Otama to attack things that are just as big as their leader, right? Like you just wouldn't touch
Yeah,
Thatch pretty much, right? Okay, that's fair.
100. Yeah.
So Ace, you put him to 5. Luffy and Atmos, you put him to like 4. Okay, that's totally fair. And so when you're using Law's Effect to shambles to put a card back, so like let's say like I guess my question is, when you're putting a card back, how do you decide which cards to pick up and which cards to play?
So that's a good question because it very much matters depending on what you've already drawn. So if I've already seen a lot of Straw Hats, and I have a Nami and I have a Dedan, I'm probably gonna just pick up the Dedan and put the Dedan into play. That way I can still hit Otamas, I can hit Makinos, and I can still hit the Choppers and the Namis. It just giving myself the most amount of targets. It would be like what I would be the line that I would typically go for. My last build was heavier on the Straw Hats for that reason, was because I wanted to be able to pick up my Nami at the end of the game. If I have a Dedan and I have a Nami, I want to be able to pick up my Nami, put the Nami into play, and find myself a counter. I want it to be guaranteed, so I played more events as well. So I wanted Nami to be like the late game card. That way she can hit my radical games, she can hit my guard points, she can hit my heavy counter. Same as well as whatever days I played in Chop.
Gotcha. So what I was coaching a guy the other day, one of my people that I coach, and he was playing Law, and I kind of explained it in a similar, or in a little bit of a different way, but like I'm sure you would agree with this too, is like Law is like a puzzle, right? And when you're searching, you're looking for like pieces of the puzzle that you're missing, right? Like if you have a lot of defense, you're looking for offense, right? So like if you have 4 2Ks and a rad beam and you search with Nami, you're looking for Zoro, right? Or Bonnie, you're looking for like restand Law, or something like that. Like whatever you're missing in the puzzle is what you're searching for. So whenever you're deciding what to pick up, you have to think about what you're searching for. And, and that exactly is just what you need to basically give yourself the win this turn or the next turn or something like that, right?
Yeah, so diversity is very good. So that's like if you're stuck in between, like, I don't know which card to pick. If you already have like should I pick up this blocker law? Should I pick up restand law? Obviously, blocker law 99% of the time that's the pick, but diversity is always good. If you take the restand law, that might give you an out to just win and kill your opponent next turn. He doesn't put a blocker into play. And if not, restand law is still 1K. You can discard him if you need to. Versus like, oh, maybe you took the blocker law and now you got put into a position and you don't have a lot of counters. Versus, so in general, same thing with like what you were saying. You have a lot of 2Ks. Okay, let's take the Zoro then. Gives you more options because the game state and the game itself changes from one turn to the next. So you giving yourself, okay, I diversified my pick and I took Zoro. This gives me, now the game has changed a little bit. This Zoro might be good now. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And another question I have when it comes to what to pick up and when shambles and using your leader effect is, do you ever pick up your law to just like have them to shambles the next turn? If you're kind of just trying to like keep recycling cards, do you ever just like pick up your law and then play like, I don't know, like a Nami in instead, or I guess maybe even a Zoro or a Luffy? Do you ever do that, or you just kind of go away from plays like that?
Blocker law, almost never. I probably would never really do that. Restand, very rarely, but yes, because restand can provide you with like an OTK, one turn kill. Also, like you can just like do the same thing. He's also a counter. Picking up the blocker law, it's a kind of a dead card in your hand, but the restand, like, sure, I'll maybe put Shambles Zoro into play, and this will give me another attack after I attack with my restand, and I attack with him, and then like next turn Zoro's still alive, or if I have another supernova, I can attack and then still be able to get the effect, the restand, like as if he was in play. Hawkins never going back into my hand.
Yep.
But
Figured that, yeah.
Yeah, but the blocker law, no, I would probably say nah. I usually just like he stays in play because he's a 6K. He's making your leader act as a 6K. If they want to just keep attacking.
Okay.
He's also a big attacker.
Let's talk about matchups now, right? Specific matchups. So, kind of starting hand against Whitebeard. What are like 1 to 3 cards that you're looking for? The 3 most important cards you're looking for in Whitebeard against Whitebeard.
Starting hand. Give me
2 to 3 cards that you like need to see or you're mulliganing.
I would love to see Nami. I would love to see Bonnie, and the rest doesn't matter.
Okay.
When I played my old version, I used to play the 4-mana 6K vanilla Zoro. I loved that card against Whitebeard. That card was eating. Just even like casting it on curve.
Would you say Zoro's more important than Otama? Like, would you like?
Oh, Otama for sure. Oh, Otama,
Okay.
Otama for sure. Yeah. Otama
Gotcha.
for sure. I mean, same thing. The Dan as well as like a source for Otama is also good. Nami as a source for Brook, 2K Brook is also good because.
So you play that turn too?
Yeah, I would play it on my turn too and put Dawn on my lead and attack. That way I'm developing my board. I'm pressing their life total a little bit and help myself like shambles like next turn.
Gotcha.
Some people have been cutting down on Brook though a little bit, which is understandable.
Because you play the Sanji now.
Exactly, you pay the Sanji.
Yep. So So what about I mean, obviously against Rebecca, you want to see like your Sanjis and whatnot. But how do you go ahead? How do you actually hold on before we talk about Rebecca? How do you play against Whitebeard? Like, what's kind of your strategy going into that?
So also one more thing, obviously, a lot more people are playing the starter Nami. That is obviously a very good card into Whitebeard as well. Just be careful of them trying to get you on like turn one with Red Hawk.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So because obviously you're gonna have to put her into play to get to use the ability, and then you attack for 6, and then they Red Hawk, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Do you ever play it on turn one, or you just kind of like hold it until like after Red Hawk like period?
No, I'll play her on turn one. I just may not attack if they just like decide to hold it up, and I could like they're telegraphing it like pretty badly. Then I'll just develop my board, use up my Dawn, and just like pass turn and just like not attack. It is what it is.
How do you know that they're telegraphing the Red Hawk?
I mean, obviously, like a lot more lists are running it now. If like let's say they're on the play, right, and then they just like go on their turn 3 Dawn, they go first and they just attack me on their turn 3. They put 1 Dawn on their leader. They attack me for 7. They leave up 2 mana. I'm like, okay, bro, you got me. I'm not gonna attack into a Red Hawk. I'll respect it,
Yeah.
Versus, yeah, because from there on out, they're not gonna be able to leave up that Red Hawk for like at least like four turns, and that Nami is gonna get me 4 turns of activations, which is worth more than me just attacking for 6 one turn.
That's fair. Completely fair. Okay, so how do you play against Whitebeard, just in general?
So against Whitebeard, I poke whenever I can, attack for 6s. I'll try to prioritize attacking for 6 over like maybe playing like something that's a shitter, as long as like I can shambles still the next turn. Like I'm talking like early on. You wanna also, you don't necessarily need to go like you don't need to generate like too much value, right? You just need to generate a board, right? So like if I don't need to like keep putting in shambling like this Nami and this Dedan to like draw more cards, no, I'll just, if I can just like put a Zoro into play instead of drawing a card with my Nami, I'll put the Law into play and I'll pressure their life total and attack them for 6. That way they're on a clock, right? So Whitebeard is on a clock against themselves. So I want to make sure that that clock is moving at a decent pace. I don't want them to be able to 9-beard me with them at 2 life or 1 life even. I mean, not 1 life will happen a lot, but that's fine. At 2 life, it's gonna break your back. You do want to find your blocker laws. You want to attack with them. You wanna, if you can set up for a turn to like do a big attack with a blocker law and a restand, or with Zoro and a restand, then that's one way to be able to win the game. Your blocker laws are very good against Whitebeard character. You want to also be careful. So sometimes like my opponent will just like if he's telegraphing that he has a 9-beard, I'll use like and I only have like a chopper, one of my shitter blockers in play. You want to be able to read that and block with your chopper, because that chopper is gonna get eaten by the Whitebeard the next turn. So I'll sometimes like toss away some of these like shitter blockers. They also get eaten by Marcos, so you gotta be careful of that. Your blocker law will be your best card in the matchup by far, except for Basil Hawkins. If you're on Basil Hawkins, you're gonna have a good time.
Okay. So what about Rebecca now? Obviously, for starting out against Rebecca, you said you're looking for, your searchers, but also very important, you're looking for Sanji. What else are you looking for? Like, how do you play against Rebecca, knowing that everything you play is possibly going to die?
Yeah. So what you need to understand with so this deck in general, you need to understand the matchups. Rebecca, there is ways to beat Rebecca just through the flaw of their own deck. So Rebecca's ability, first off, Rebecca obviously starves you. That's why we're playing Sanji, able to eat from our life to give ourselves some like some fuel or gas, and he also attacks pretty heavily. Rebecca's ability is for 1 Dawn. You get to look at the top 2 cards. If you have 6 or less cards in hand, and you get to draw a Dressrosa. So you can stop them from using their ability, and the way to do that is to pressure their life total heavily. So you go, I'll not if I have a Nami in my hand on turn 1, I'm not putting it into play. On my if I have a whatever other a bunch of 1-drops that I can play, even if I have a 2-drop, I may not put it into play on turn 2, but instead I'm putting 3 Dawn on my leader and I'm attacking you for 8, right? 90% of the people are just gonna take that first eight attack because they don't want to just like they only have 5 cards or whatever, they drew a cards in hand, and discard 2 cards, but instead they'll take a life, right? So they took a life. So now they typically will have, after they activated their leader ability on turn on their turn 1 or their 2 Dawn, they have 5, 6, and the one that they drew for turn. So now they have 7, right?
And if they take a life, they'll have 8, and then the draw will be 9. So they just can't get cards out of their hand.
So now they can't use their leader ability anymore to draw cards and fuel their graveyard. Then the next turn after that, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put three whatever, or 4 Dawn on my leader. I'll probably put 3, and I'll attack him for 8 again, and I'll play a 2-drop. Now I'm gonna slowly start to progress my game state. They're gonna try to dump as many cards out of their hand onto the board so they can, but I'm not putting anything out for them to kill. So they start throwing some stuff out. If they have blockers, whatever. If they have a Kyros, okay. So now that you threw your Kyros out, guess what? My 1-drops can start coming into play.
So do you kind of just against Rebecca? Do you just kind of avoid doing really anything until you can just shambles the same turn? Pretty much, is that kind of your strategy?
I'll slowly start to do that, and then I'll just explode. So I'll maybe put a 2-drop into play. It's very difficult for them to kill 2-drops, not without using
or Lumbus
or Lumbus, or having to waste a card like 3-sword style, which is they typically won't do that, but they'll use it on a Sanji if they see one.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll try to put these 2-drops into play, things that they can't kill easily, and then I'll just go do shambles in 1 turn, that way, and then next thing you know, they're just oh shit, now I can't keep up with the board,
Gotcha. And so that's Rebecca. Here's a fun one. What about the mirror match? How do you kind of navigate the mirror match? I've seen you play a few of those. I've seen you win most of them. Is it more tech things, or is it just Otama kind of abuse? How do you navigate the mirror match?
So the mirror match is it's a lot. There's a lot that happens in the mirror. Yeah. So the first thing is obviously the person who has the Bonnies and has their searchers, he is at an advantage, right? So if I don't have my Bonnies early on, my opponent might be able to snowball me and just playing his guides, putting a Bonnie into play, and just putting laws and just providing amount of value faster than me that I can't keep up with. However, there's a lot of games, but then at the same time, you might be able to crawl out of it if he gets too aggressive, and then you end up finding your own Bonnie.
Yep.
And
you wipe his board with Otamas.
Exactly. You can get back into it. However, the games that both players have Bonnies, these games definitely come a lot more down to skill, versus obviously people who have or don't have the Bonnie. It's a lot more difficult. It's not really a fair playing field.
Yeah, but let's say in general, both players have Bonnies, both players are similar in skill level. What are some things that you try to do to just gain advantage?
I'll definitely it definitely comes down to also how you build your deck. The way I have my deck built right now beats up on the mirror a little bit. There's a couple of ways to be able to beat up on the mirror. You could obviously Vista's a very good card in the mirror. So some people you might find them running 4 copies. Nico's pretty good in the mirror as well because she has the same effect. Some people are running both. Some decks are also running Hawkins and Luffy are both good in the mirror because Hawkins will negate your opponent, scare them from attacking. He gets to keep you can get to attack into their guy and keep your guy standing up if he lets it go. And entice them to you attacking their board is better than attacking their life when it comes to law. So as much as you can do that, you're gonna be able to control the pace better. You're gonna end up with more cards in your hand. You might be at less life, but it's not gonna matter. And then same thing with Luffy. Luffy's very good because law, like I said, tends to take a lot of life, especially when you're against each other and one person has a Bonnie and the other one does it. The other one might take more life, to try to keep up, to find like his combo pieces. And then Luffy comes down in a spot where what we talked about earlier, you could put the board will end up like getting really clogged with like a bunch of like law blockers, some Zoros if there is, or restand laws, and like a bunch of like choppers or beige stuff like that. And that's where Luffy shines, and he comes down, and you could just like put him standing up, say go, give your opponent a turn to do whatever he wants, and then now you're just attacking with all your Dawn onto your Luffy, and then restanding him and just like doing like a attack.
In this matchup, do you really attack with your blocker laws, or are you just kind of more conservative because they might have Otama?
I'll attack if he's attacking.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like I'm not gonna like if I'm able to get value out of him attacking into theirs, I'll attack. But I'm not gonna give them value of them attacking into mine, especially first at least. I want to be the last person to discard card, not the first person to.
I completely agree. I was playing in the store. I won the store championship at Coliseum of Comics yesterday, playing Film Dofi, and I played a mirror match, and he looked at me super weird when he made me go first. I lost a dice roll, and I didn't attack him I didn't attack his leader for 3 turns straight. And he looked at me kind of weird, and it was I literally played it just how I played Kid in 01. Set 1, the mirror match is I don't want to give you resources, especially when these are 2 grindy decks. So the second he started tapping his character sideways, I was swinging at it, and at one point in the game he had 1 card in hand and I had 7. So it was in a lot of the times in these mirror matches, if they start attacking first and giving you cards, and then you start attacking their characters and taking away cards, you're going to be at a huge advantage, especially if you're the last person to start discarding cards.
Yeah, 100%, and the same thing can apply as well to the honest. If my opponent tries to starve me as law, I'm gonna starve you back. So yeah. I'm gonna try to stay at parity on cards as much as I can with my opponent. And not give him an edge, because cards in hand are worth more than they are in life when it comes to this deck.
Absolutely. This is one of the few decks where life does not matter unless you're scared of rushed Luffy. That's the only time you would really stay at 1 life, right?
Yep, 100%.
Pretty much, yeah. But do you have any other things you can add? I think we're kind of at the end of the video. This has been about 50 minutes of just pure law knowledge. Do you have anything else that we just didn't talk about?
So obviously there's a lot of different builds that come to law. We could touch on that a little bit. You've seen the list, the list that I had, for the Florida regional was had the 8 drop kids in it.
Yep.
That list is also actually very, very good in the mirror. There is a slight edge that you get in terms of your opponents may not know that you run a drop kit, right? All the law decks look very similar off the bat, so your opponent may not know, so he may not save his Atama. And you also drop the 8 drop kid at the very end when okay, I've exhausted this guy's resources, here's an 8-drop kid. So the 8-drop kid is very good. However, he's not very good against in this format. But if this format turns into like a bunch of laws beating up on each other, he will definitely have a place. Hawkins is very good. I'm a big fan of the vanilla Zoro because where we talked about, not getting any of the green guys, not having Bonnie, not having like, the blocker laws in your hand, but you're having the red searchers, the Curly, the Dan, and the Nami. The reason I like playing vanilla Zoro, I'm still unsure if I'm gonna be playing him in this format. But
would you say that starter deck Zoro is just better right now because people are playing starter deck Nami, and starter deck Nami is just like works better in that aspect?
Well, starter deck Nami, so starter deck Zoro gives you a green card to be able to just keep shambles, right?
Yeah.
And that you could search for off of Nami, off of red Nami. My issue is with I obviously the starter Nami is great. It's a great card in the format as of right now, but the people who have kind of built it, like, they've gotten a little clunky with their 2K counters. Like we've seen some lists like run like, they ended up running a lot more 2-drops in terms of like, that are straw hats for 2K counter. But we're missing out on some amount of 2Ks from like also the from Dan. There's probably a right way to build it. I just don't think that some of these are it. I haven't really looked at all the just from the list that I've seen. However, I mean, I've tested Starter Nami. Starter Nami as a card by itself has been very good in a lot of matchups.
All right.
Yeah, and besides that, like I said, depending on what you want to beat, Nico, Vistas, more events if you like.
What are you kind of leaning towards right now, Nico or Vista?
Vista's great. So Nico, if with Zoro, if Zoro's being less in the format, Nico's gonna be a lot better.
Yeah. No more Fire Fist or anything like that.
Right, and it's searchable. Versus Zoro's just like immediate value, and with Law, it's also like very good because you could just like keep shamblesing it. The Vista is good against Law. Nico's a little bit worse because she requires more time. Because you want to just like with if you're playing into Law, you want to like Vista, shambles Law, put Vista back into play, eat 2 guys. Versus Nico's like, put Nico into play. Next turn put a Dawn, attack, eat something. Okay, now shambles, put Nico back into play. Okay, next turn I'm gonna eat something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit slower. So Vista is definitely.
I was gonna say that's why I prefer Vista. In most matchups, the immediate impact of Vista is just like better, because I feel like a lot of decks right now just have like answers for cards that require a turn to set up. Especially every blue deck has an answer now, and then obviously Zoro has an answer. Pretty much every deck has an answer for cards that are slower now. Rather than Vista is just right now it's automatic.
I do feel like there's gonna be a rise in Zoros again soon.
Yeah.
Because where Law becomes popular, Zoro's gonna become popular, Rebecca's gonna become popular, and at the same time, if Rebecca becomes popular, what's it called? Yellow's gonna be also very good. So there's a lot of like fighting between all these decks. This deck beats this deck beats this deck beats this. But Law does consistently beat a lot of decks, so does Zoro. So I do think, and Zoro's a very good deck into Law. So I do think that deck's going to be making a comeback. We did see it win a regional.
Yeah.
So.
How do you feel about the green-purple Dofi matchup? I feel like I've been playing that a lot recently, and I feel like I'm favored into Law. Am I just on copium right now, or is that like a pretty
probably.
Okay, but like, but you can kind of see where I'm coming from. Where like we have Sugar and Punk Gibson and Uta. Like it feels like we can get enough value. Like obviously
Yeah.
we don't have a like immediate value, but like with Nami and like Guild Tesoro, it feels like we gain a ton of value while also being able to slow you down a little bit. Are you worried about that matchup at all, or you're just like when you see it, you kind of like get excited?
Yeah, I will say I get a little bit excited, but not as excited as I am against like, you know, uh, Blue Crocker. Like,
Yeah, we're gonna have
yeah,
to play a couple games against my Dofi and see if you still feel the same way. Because like I've been doing, like dude, I've been like eating laws. Like I've been beating like Law, Whitebeard, Katakuri. The only thing I feel like I
yeah.
lose to is like Blue. So like I don't know. I feel like Dofi's pretty strong in the format right now.
No, it's definitely strong. I have like it's you do play a lot of like the way that I play into it is just like it's just like attack for fives and running you out of cards very quickly, and I go very wide. Uh, that way, like your your events are just like practically 1Ks.
Yeah.
Um, and like, but Sugar is very good. Sugar for sure is very good. If you do have Vistas, she does. It is a little bit embarrassing for her, but besides that, like Sugar is very good. Uta's also pretty good. The deck definitely has. You could definitely win. You know, uh, playing the deck. I'm not gonna say like it's a auto win for me. It's not.
Yeah, I mean the way that I play is like I play Sugar like turn like 3 or something when you have like 3 characters on board or 4, and then like
Yeah.
I like pop 1 and like maybe Punk Gibson the one before, so like I like get rid of 2 cards and just if you play something
Back
else,
attack, yeah.
you play something else, it gets rested, so it just makes it a little bit harder. And then obviously I like to starve you out as well, so like if you try to play Sanji, I'll Sugar it. That's just the way that I've been playing it, and I've just been like, I mean I don't know the quality of the laws I've been playing because it's mainly on the simulator, and like a couple people in tournaments that I think are like pretty decent, but I've been doing very well into that that matchup, and I feel like pretty comfortable into it.
How's the yellow matchup?
I think it's honestly favored like with me. I think
Sure.
the thing is like you take the first 2 life, and then like they're always playing on curve pretty much. So like if they go second, they're going like what like either Sanji into Cracker into the 6-drop Pero into Katakuri, and like you're playing on curve too, but like you can just like block or counter out of like everything, and then like while they're building their board you can like counter out with like Spiderwebs and Punk Gibsons and like go super wide, and then like if you can lock them into like with what is his name, Doflamingo, then you can just keep going really wide while gaining a bunch of cards, and they just like can't kill you because you have so many blockers that they can't take off the board. So yeah, I mean I've beaten like obviously I won the store championship. I beat Whitebeard, Katakuri. I beat a bunch of different matchups, but it feels good. Do you have any other final kind of anything to say before we end the video?
I'm good. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and shout out everybody. Saying
Shout out everybody. So no one, no
shout
one
out
is left. Yeah, no one's left.
yeah, exactly. That way nobody can play shit. Just shout out everybody.
Everybody, bro. Great job. Great job. Guys, if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments below, and we will see you guys on my next video. Peace.